We'll have a few clouds to deal with here and there, but generally dry weather for the next couple of days. We'll check that forecast next on News Center 8 at 10.
Straight ahead at 10, a Columbia babysitter heads to prison for life. How to make sure your kids stay safe and graduating with balloons. The news is next.
You're watching KOMU TV 8, NBC for Mid-Missouri. This is News Center 8.
Prosecutors left court with their
Outspoken, high emotional reaction from survivors and relatives of the Oklahoma City bombing victims in the wake of Timothy McVeigh's conviction. Good evening, everyone. I'm Dave Price. Linda has the night off. Jurors in the Oklahoma City bombing trial have spoken. Their verdict: Timothy McVeigh is guilty of committing America's worst act of domestic terrorism. On their fourth day of deliberations, the jury convicted McVeigh on all 11 counts, including 8 charges of murder and 3 others stemming from the use of a weapon of mass destruction. NBC's Craig Wall recaps the high court drama from the federal courthouse in Denver.
victims of the bombing emerged victorious from the courthouse, cheering the jury's verdict. A verdict that tells the world what they already knew.
It was right.
It's a long 2-year wait.
Right.
Timothy McVeigh is a mass murderer guilty of killing 168 people in Oklahoma City more than 2 years ago.
I don't want him to die. I want him to spend the rest of his life in one room.
I would just like to walk by and spit on him.
It's not over until he's dead.
Crowds cheered the prosecution team as well. Their case against McVeigh strong enough to withstand defense challenges of reasonable doubt. In Denver, Craig Wall, NBC News.
And in Oklahoma City tonight, families and friends of the 168 victims found their own way to cope with this chapter of their private-turned-public tragedies. Some gathered for songs and prayers, others worked to find their own separate peace. A Columbia babysitter is sentenced today after being convicted of suffocating 2 children in her home. Joanne Palmer received a life sentence for second-degree murder plus 12 years for involuntary manslaughter and endangering the welfare of a child. Palmer pleaded her innocence in court today, but Boone County Circuit Court Judge Ellen Roper didn't buy Palmer's testimony.
Having now told the court that you are not responsible, I think you're more dangerous than ever to young children who cannot fight back, who cannot run away.
Palmer will soon be sent to the Wren's Correctional Center near Jefferson City. She could be eligible for parole in 25 years. The Missouri Division of Family Services referred low-income parents to Joanne Palmer even after she lost her foster care license because of abuse complaints. Some child care advocates told DFS at a hearing tonight that they think the present system is unfair. News Center 8's Betsy Webster was at that meeting, and she joins us now in the newsroom to tell us why. Betsy?
Dave, tonight's hearing was the third of 6 across the state to get input about how to spend an additional $22 million. The Department of Social Services will get this money in the next fiscal year as part of federal welfare reform. Now, one issue close to the heart of Columbians at tonight's meeting is the licensing process.
Jana is happy here at this licensed child care center. Licensed centers like this one must do background checks on all their employees to be sure they have no history of abuse or neglect. But the state-funded referral system for low-income families sometimes sends parents to licensed exempt providers, also known as registered vendors, people like Joanne Palmer.
I had a mom a couple of weeks ago who said, well, I just assumed that if she had a contract with the state, that she was like really, really good and probably one of the best programs in town. And I had to say, well, you know what? Probably just the opposite is true.
But DFS says it can't require anything beyond federal health and safety standards for things like smoke detectors and immunizations.
They feel, as I said, to impose the background screening would require a statute.
And as the law stands, people caring for 4 or fewer children can't be licensed. Some suggested that these people should have the option of getting licensed voluntarily.
And there are a number of situations in Columbia like that where people are caring for 3 children, 2 children, 4 children, not to avoid licensure, but simply because they realize that fits their style best.
Now, some other issues that came up tonight concerned foster children and special needs children not getting the care they deserve because providers can't afford to care for them with the funds the state gives them. And Dave, the next hearing is tomorrow in Springfield.
All right, Betsy Webster, live in our newsroom. Thank you. Well, until the system changes, parents can take things into their own hands when looking for quality care for their kids. And here are some tips to find that quality care. Check licensing records with state agencies. Here you'll find both complaints and compliments about licensed centers. For registered vendors, ask for references. If the vendor acts offended, just simply walk away. Now look for providers with specialized training. Often being a mom is just simply not enough. And finally, drop by unannounced for surprise checks. Now, if you need help finding a provider, you can turn to a referral agency like Child Care Connection. It has a 1-800 number. That 1-800 number, 1-800-243-9685. Police investigate a lead in the death of a Columbia man. They're looking for a woman who anonymously called the State Highway Patrol saying she found Michael Glasgow's car last Monday. Friends and family started searching for Glasgow in late May after reporting him missing. His body was discovered last Wednesday. The Mid-Missouri Major Case Squad is interviewing more than 30 people in connection with the case, but police are still looking for more information. They're asking anyone with connections to Michael Glasgow to contact them as soon as possible. Now, if you have information, you can call Crime Stoppers at 573-875-8477, or you can call the Callaway County Sheriff's Department. That number, 573-642-7291. Violent crime is down, according to the FBI's latest crime statistics. Nationally, violent crimes fell 7%, the largest drop since the Kennedy administration. In mid-Missouri, the decline is even more substantial. Jefferson City's violent crime rate fell more than 10%, while in Columbia, the rate dropped more than 20%. Both police departments say community involvement and effective crime prevention programs are major factors in these low statistics. Jurors wrapped up their first day of deliberations at the racketeering trial of former Missouri House Speaker Bob Griffin and 3 co-defendants. Jurors began deliberations early this morning after taking the weekend off. They have to consider 37 charges, including racketeering, bribery, and mail fraud. The judge gave jurors 66 pages of instructions to follow while considering their verdict. Legal experts say the 9 women and 3 men jury should reach a verdict in 2 to 3 days. The widow of Malcolm X remains hospitalized near death tonight. Betty Shabazz suffered severe burns covering more than 80% of her body as she tried to put out a fire in her apartment yesterday. A family lawyer says Shabazz's 12-year-old grandson allegedly set the fire. The lawyer says the boy was apparently unhappy about being sent to live with his grandmother. Tonight, friends and family of Shabazz gathered in Atlanta for a vigil to show their support through prayer. President Clinton has also sent an expression of concern to the Shabazz family. Across the world tonight, France has a new prime minister and a new parliament. French left-wing socialists now control the country's Congress and its National Assembly. After this man, Lionel Jospin, defeated incumbent Prime Minister Jacques Chirac in yesterday's election, the left won by promising more jobs and shorter work weeks for the same pay. Canada also had general elections, but unlike the results in France, Canadian Prime Minister Jean Chrétien and his Liberal Party are expected to hold on to power. But the election has highlighted splits between Eastern and Western Canada and between English and French-speaking Canadians. The Chicago-based retail giant Montgomery Ward is closing its doors after being a main draw at Columbia's Biscayne Mall for some 25 years. News Center 8's Tracy Sadigan tells us why the vacancy has mall owners excited.
12% of the mall's 270,000 square feet is vacant, and that number will increase when Montgomery Ward leaves at the end of the month. But mall owners call Montgomery Ward's exodus a blessing.
Obviously, everybody went across the street, so to speak, and went over to the Columbia Mall for its newness and its, you know, more contemporary design. And now we're finally getting a chance where we get rid of some of the older leases, like Ward's, for example.